All right, good afternoon. My name is Megan Richards, and as Maura said, I am an accessibility specialist at the City of Ottawa. I'll give you a quick image description of myself. I am a youngish woman with long brown hair. I have large frame glasses, and I'm presenting to you from my bedroom at home, where it is the quietest place right now. Today, I'm participating in Red Shirt Day of Action for Accessibility and Inclusion. This is a day when people across Canada come together and wear red in schools, workplaces, and spaces everywhere in order to create a visible display of solidarity, to show their support for persons and families who are living with disabilities, to celebrate the achievements of people living with disabilities, and to pledge their commitment to help create a fully accessible and inclusive society that honors and values the contributions of people of all abilities in all aspects of life in Canada. And you can find out more information on Red Shirt Day on the easterseals.ca website. I've been working with people with disabilities from a very young age when I started as a personal support worker in respite care. I've worked in the community, long-term care, hospital, and now with the city for 2.5 years. I have a physical disability which is sometimes visible and sometimes not, and other invisible disabilities as well. I do many different things in my daily work, but today, as part of the session on innovations and technologies creating universal experiences in public places, I'll be speaking to you about the City of Ottawa Municipal Accessibility Plan. And the image on this first slide is a series of rainbow accessibility icons. In my presentation, I'm going to give you a background on the City of Ottawa and accessibility. I'll talk about the development of our City of Ottawa Municipal Accessibility Plan, and then I'll get into some innovations and technologies that we're implementing to increase inclusion. The image on this slide shows a mother assisting her son in the water using one of the city's beach wheelchairs. I'll now give you some background on accessibility at the City of Ottawa. Though some of you may live here, you may not know that the City of Ottawa was created in 2001 when all 11 lower tier municipalities of the former regional municipality of Ottawa-Carleton were amalgamated. Ottawa is Canada's capital and Ontario's second largest municipality. Our population is 1 million. The city runs on a $3.3 billion operating budget and has about 17,000 employees. The city is committed to increasing accessibility for persons with disabilities, and we have obligations under both provincial and federal law and under city policy. And an interesting note, on most days, without even thinking about it, most residents interact with some kind of city facility, service, or program. And the image on this slide shows Ottawa City Hall. The 4 core principles of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, dignity, independence, integration, and equality of opportunity are integral to our own accessibility policy. Our accessibility policy states that city services, programs, goods, and facilities are to be available to people with disabilities in a manner that is free from discrimination, includes accessible formats and communication supports, seeks to provide integrated services, provides an opportunity equitable to others to obtain, use, and benefit from the goods and services, and takes into consideration a person's disability. The image on this slide shows a super cute service dog wearing a harness. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the city's Accessibility Advisory Committee when discussing accessibility in Ottawa. This committee fulfills the duties of a municipal accessibility advisory committee as outlined in the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. They provide advice to council on programs, policies, and services provided to persons with disabilities and older adults. This group of volunteers is available as a resource to staff as well, providing input on matters being pursued to achieve council's strategic priorities. When creating the committee, the majority of members must be people with disabilities, and at least 2 members must be over the age of 60. As much as possible, members of the committee are to reflect the city's diverse community. This committee is recruited for each term of council and members of the public are encouraged to apply through ottawa.ca. In 2020, the committee held 7 meetings, 6 of them virtual. They received 35 requests for feedback and reviewed 63 site plans. The image on this slide shows a meeting of the Accessibility Advisory Committee at City Hall. I'll now discuss the development of the City of Ottawa Municipal Accessibility Plan. As per our legislative requirements, we consulted with the community of persons with disabilities to assist in the development of our new 2020 to 2024 accessibility plan. This gave us the opportunity to learn what we're doing well so we can capitalize on our successes. It also allowed us to explore the barriers that people with disabilities still face so we can plan initiatives to reduce or eliminate them. The image on this slide is a sign advertising a City of Ottawa Municipal Accessibility Plan consultation. In-person consultations were held in urban, suburban, and rural locations in the daytime and evening to ensure that many people could participate. We also held a large consultation as part of our annual Accessibility Day celebration. We developed an online survey with a phone option for those without internet access or barriers to participating online. Lastly, we developed a community toolkit for groups and organizations to provide feedback without city staff present. Groups that we engaged include people with disabilities, organizations that are run by and support people with disabilities, caregivers, friends, family members, the general public, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the French Language Services Advisory Committee. This image shows a person consulting with city staff. The city's equity and inclusion lens was used to develop targeted outreach plans to ensure we communicated with and promoted the consultations to groups that may be at risk of exclusion. This includes cross disabilities, Indigenous, rural, women, LGBTQ2S+, low income, francophones, immigrants, racialized people, youth, and seniors. This resulted in diverse perspectives and interactions with the city and considers intersectionality. The image on this slide shows members of the city's Accessibility Advisory Committee holding up signs to read, "Disability is an essential part of human diversity." To ensure that everyone could participate, accommodations and supports were actively offered, including sign language interpretation in American Sign Language or langue de signes québécoise, captioning, braille, portable FM loop listening device, personal support worker, and others upon request. This image shows captioning on one of our new larger screen televisions in council chambers at City Hall. We heard from over 200 participants, and though we did not gather demographic information, anecdotal information collected demonstrates that we engage people with a wide variety of disabilities. A wide variety of ages participated, in addition to parents and caregivers and many different organizations. Urban, suburban, and rural residents provided input. We also held targeted consultations with supports for persons who are blind and low vision and for the deaf community. This image shows a photo taken at the consultation with the deaf community. This session was facilitated with sign language interpreters in ASL and LSQ. Though I've just discussed how we consulted to develop our plan, it's essential for us to engage with organizations on an ongoing basis to allow us to continue to improve. We continue to engage with many organizations and encourage others to reach out to connect with us. We are also involved in many partnerships, such as the Public Sector Ontario Network of Accessibility Professionals, the Canadian Accessibility Network, and the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. This image shows a city staff member at Accessibility Day. I'll now give some examples of innovations and technologies to increase inclusion that are part of our City of Ottawa Municipal Accessibility Plan. One way we're using technology to ensure inclusion is through our web accessibility policy. The City of Ottawa is proud to be a leader across the province and country in web and document accessibility. and at implementing strategies to meet the World Wide Web Consortium's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG 2.0 Level AA. In addition to people with disabilities, web accessibility benefits many users, including those accessing information through a mobile device and those with slower connection speeds, such as in our many rural areas. To create accessible documents, we have several resources to support staff, including a style guide for electronic documents, the CNIB's Clear Print Guidelines, and a corporate style guide. Training is offered through the city's web accessibility specialist, and this is encouraged for all staff who create documents for the public. We also have specific tools, such as a tool to ensure color contrast. This image shows a small group of people who we engaged in WebEx testing as part of our commitment to web accessibility. We own Ottawa.ca and approximately 80 additional websites and applications to provide services to our residents. Ottawa.ca has approximately 10,000 different pages. While we're not yet fully compliant, a tremendous amount of work has gone into making sure that these pages and content meet the WCAG 2.0 Level AA requirements. In addition to our web accessibility specialist, most departments have a web lead who also has expertise in accessibility. Our applications undergo accessibility testing by our quality assurance team, who also have expertise in digital accessibility. This image is a screenshot of the Ottawa.ca page announcing Ottawa joining the Canadian Accessibility Network. Our information and communication supports procedure assists staff in determining how to best meet information and communication requests from the community. When we consider accessibility first and foremost, adaptation to another format can be accommodated easily and quickly. We advertise through links on our websites, signage at service counters, and on many of our documents, using the line accessible formats and communication supports are available upon request. When receiving a request, we can use technology and other innovations to ensure all our information, communications, and events are inclusive to all people. The image shown here is signage for one of our gender-neutral washrooms at City Hall. It includes several icons and text and braille in both English and French. The city is committed to designing new and redeveloping existing parks to include innovative accessibility features. We consult with our Accessibility Advisory Committee and the community to determine needs. In the last years, the availability of accessibility features to include in parks has really expanded. This includes features like ramps to access play structures, many types of different accessible swings, the use of engineered wood fiber, which allows for smooth wheelchair access to park structures for caregivers and children, things like accessible picnic tables, benches and shade areas, and games tables and sand tables. This image shows an accessible playground at Notre Dame de Champs Park. This is one of our newer parks and has some really neat accessibility features. Our recreation department also continues to be committed to supporting accessibility at our city beaches. One of the ways we've done this is through the availability of beach wheelchairs. We have semi-submersible chairs that sit atop 4 large inflatable tires and can easily be pushed over the soft sand and into the water. We also have a fully submersible 3-wheel version. They include adjustable armrests and quick release seatbelts. These are available to rent free of charge at all of our city beaches. We have 2 at Britannia, 1 at Westboro, 2 at Mooney's Bay, and 3 at Petrie Island. Beach mats like the one shown in the image here are also available at Mooney's Bay. These innovations allow everyone to use our city beaches. In 2020, the city added video relay service as another way to telephone the city. This technology allows callers to connect with a sign language interpreter in ASL or LSQ, who facilitates conversation between both parties. The city still offers TTY service, but this new technological option is now preferred by many in the deaf community. All call center staff have been trained to accept calls this way. This image shows a person signing in American Sign Language. In the built environment, best practice is continually emerging. New innovations and technologies are being brought to market all the time. The city's retrofit barrier removal program continues to make improvements to increase accessibility of our older facilities, parks, and paths of travel. This is done through a council-approved budget. It allows for retrofits that include things like power door operators, washroom barrier removal and accessibility enhancements, accessible change rooms, the installation of handrails and grab bars, and the installation and improvement of ramps, along with many more upgrades. This image shows a ramp installation at the Churchill Senior Center as part of our retrofits program. Accessible pedestrian signals, or APS, assist all pedestrians, including those who are blind, partially sighted, or deaf-blind, to know when they have the right of way to cross at a signalized intersection and in which direction to cross through audible, tactile, vibrotactile, and visual signage. There are currently 270 APS installed across the city, with more being added each year. These emit a steady and constant beeping sound known as a locator tone to make the button easier to find for people with limited sight. To activate, simply press the raised tactile arrow button once and wait for the walk signal to appear. If you hold the raised tactile arrow button down for at least 3 seconds, you'll trigger a vibration and a sound to inform pedestrians that the audible component has been triggered. The sound is then heard when it is safe to cross. There's a cuckoo sound, and I wanted to play this for you, but and I'm not going to do it, so you'll just have to imagine. It indicates the right-of-way pedestrian crossing for north-south travel. And then there's also a Canadian melody sound for east-west. If the audible cuckoo or Canadian melody sound is triggered, the push button with the raised tactile arrow pointing in the direction of the crossing will also vibrate once the walk signal appears. This image shows an accessible pedestrian signal. The city is also using technology to improve the paratranspo system. When launched later in 2021, the My Paratranspo online system will allow for booking, confirming, or canceling a paratranspo trip, creating a new subscription for recurring trips, tracking the location of a booked trip and getting an estimated time of arrival, and sending reminders to customers by automated phone message, email, or SMS text. The system is being tested by people with disabilities for accessibility and usability. This image shows a paratranspo bus and driver. The Ottawa Public Library is engaged in many different accessibility initiatives and consistently look for new technology and innovations to increase inclusion. We are designing a new central library, and accessibility is a focus of this project to ensure the new branch incorporates universal design and innovation to benefit people with disabilities. We have implemented new assistive technology in library branches, including touchscreens for public computer use. The Digital Accessible Information System, or DAISY, format audiobooks can contain up to 30 hours of material on one CD. These are easier to navigate for customers with a print disability than other books on CD. DAISY audiobooks are played on specific players or with free downloadable software. Customers with a print disability may also borrow a DAISY player from the library. Another offering is sensory storytime, so children and their caregivers can participate in storytime in a low sensory environment. Staff receive special training for low sensory storytimes. And finally, the Ottawa Public Library has installed beacon technology, key to access, in one of their locations. This technology is also available at City Hall. We are continually exploring the possibility of expanding wayfinding technologies and consult with the CNIB, the Alliance for Equality for Blind Canadians, and the Canadian Council for the Blind to ensure we implement new and suitable technologies for wayfinding. This image shows an accessible pathway outside the Rideau Library. We utilize different technologies and supports to ensure that our meetings, events, and public engagement activities are inclusive to all. This includes things like providing live captioning of council meetings. There are also several in-person tools, including an adjustable podium for events, large screen televisions to display captioning, and portable FM loop listening devices. We also provide several virtual supports for meetings, events, and consultations, such as sign language interpretation, captioning, and sharing accessible documents in advance. This image shows a city staff member and a participant of one of the city's variety programs preparing a meal. While COVID-19 has created new barriers for some, technological innovations have also allowed for more inclusive communications. At the city, ASL and LSQ have been provided for all COVID-19 related media availabilities and town halls since March 2020. Going forward, our new alternate formats and communication supports procedure includes ASL, LSQ, and captioning for all emergency-related media. We've also translated many resources on the Ottawa Public Health webpage in ASL and LSQ, including resources for mask wearing, about vaccines, and mental health supports. All of our vaccination clinics are assessed for accessibility using the City of Ottawa Accessibility Design Standards. For those who require, we also have an accommodations request form for COVID-19 vaccinations. This can include things like having access to a quiet space, support for wayfinding and navigation, extra staff support, and many others. This image shows a screenshot from our Ottawa Public Health page of a deaf interpreter signing information on how mRNA vaccines work in American Sign Language. One way that you can stay connected with accessibility at the City of Ottawa is to sign up for our Accessibility Spotlight newsletter. You can sign up for this using the city's e-subscription sign-up form. This image shows participants at one of the city's variety programs. That brings me to the end of my presentation, and my contact information is shown on this slide. You can reach me by email, megan.richards@ottawa.ca, or by phone at 613-580-2424, extension 12752. I'm always happy to share resources and answer questions however I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. That was a very comprehensive presentation, and there's just so many supports that have been built in and are being built in to the city plan to support accessibility in our region, or in the city of Ottawa. So thank you. There are questions coming in from the through the chat, but what we will do is hold all questions until the end of the second plenary session. And so to that end, it is now my pleasure to introduce Lisa LeBlanc, who is the Director General of the Ingenium Science and Technology Center. I hope I have that right, Lisa, but welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. I think I have the right one here. Okay, so good afternoon. As Moira mentioned, my name is Lisa LeBlanc. I'm Director General of the Canada Science and Technology Museum located here in Ottawa. I'm a white woman with long brown hair and dark framed glasses, and I'm joining you today from my home office. Science and tech, and on the slide there is an image here of science and technology with its front door and a kind of projected canopy over that front door. Science and Tech is part of Ingenium, which also includes two other museums here in Ottawa, the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum and the Canada Aviation and Space Museum, as well as the new Ingenium Centre. Science and Tech was fortunate to undergo a major renewal that led to the reopening of the brand new facility that you see here in 2017. The renewal project became a launching point for Ingenium's commitment to accessibility, resulting in the Rick Hansen Foundation Gold certification for the museum's built environment in 2018. And this week, we are proud to announce that our new Ingenium Center has also attained Gold certification for its built environment through the Rick Hansen Foundation as well. So we're very happy about that. 1 second. There we go. Since that first commitment a few years ago, Ingenium continues to seek out, champion, and implement best practices for barrier-free public spaces and programs across our 3 museums and the new Ingenium Center. We're committed to raising awareness and engaging our peers, stakeholders, and Canadians in the conversation around physical, sensory, and cognitive accessibility, and to demonstrate the benefits of this work. We understand our responsibility and duty as a national institution and endeavor to leverage our platform to share our experiences and learning with other institutions and the general public. As we embark on the development of a full accessibility plan for Ingenium in response to the Accessible Canada Act, we've committed to providing accessible experiences to all Canadians through consultation and co-creation with the Accessibility Committee. But as a learning organization, we're continuously improving access to the museums and the Ingenium Center, to our research, to our collections, our archives, and the experiences that we provide on-site, off-site at other partner institutions, and through virtual means. We want to ensure that audiences that have traditionally faced barriers are welcome on-site and online. And while we have made progress on multiple fronts, we recognize that addressing accessibility is a complex issue requiring multiple long-term and sustainable strategies. So this afternoon, I'd like to highlight just a few initiatives that have moved us beyond the initial success of our built environments. I would be remiss in telling you that the museum had considered every aspect of inclusion for people with disabilities when developing the new museum. But often meaningful change is sparked by lived experience and perspective that you just haven't considered. It was during a visit at the Ottawa River Canoe Club that our curator, Cédric Brosseau, was there talking about the accessibility considerations that we were undertaking as part of the renewal, that he met a woman who asked him, "So having access to the museum is good, but will I see myself in the new museum?" That simple question set the team on the path to review the stories of the Great Outdoors Gallery, to acquire new artifacts for the National Collection, and to showcase them in the Adapting Adventure section on adaptive technology that highlights accessibility in nature and presents technology as a possible solution to participation. The first object that Ingenium collected was Brad Stavinsky's high roller, which is featured here, Brad using the high roller on a cliff face. Brad is a climber with partial quadriplegia, and he developed and used this device to hoist himself up a mountain. He sits within the frame and with large wheels overhead, and so the structure keeps him from scraping up against the rock. A pulley system lets him use his upper arms to make the climb. Until the acquisition of the high roller, the museum's collection around disability and mobility largely consisted of leg braces, crutches, leg prostheses, wheelchairs, and one adapted motor vehicle. It could be argued that these artifacts provided a traditional view of representing disability. But that one question about seeing herself in the museum set us on a path to further acquire objects to support this story. Because Adapting Adventure focused on enjoying the outdoors in Canada, we sought stories that supported adaptation over land, water, and snow. So the first image on this slide is the Parks Explorer. which is a wheeled assistive technology vehicle developed and manufactured by Christian Bag to help people with physical disabilities better access and enjoy outdoor recreation. This adaptive off-road vehicle helps its riders travel over rough and sloping terrain. The Parks Explorer is equipped with a suspension and leveling mechanism that allows the rider to stay upright. And pedaling by hand, a person with core and leg impairments can independently explore parks, mountain bike trails, and backcountry environments. The second image on this slide is the Sonic 80X Beginner Kayak, which is a sit-on-top design that ensures the person paddling doesn't get stuck inside if the boat flips. The modified high back seat provides back support for a person with a weak core, and the padded seat can make for a more comfortable ride and can also help prevent pressure sores. And a third image on this slide is the Sasky Kneeler Sit Ski, which enables people with disabilities to cross-country ski. This kneeling sit ski is for amputees or people with limited or no leg mobility who have control of their core. In the kneeling position, skiers can use their core and upper body to create efficient forward motion. These stories were great opportunities for the museum and the exhibition team to think differently about disability, not just as a medical condition, but a social one as well. And while we're delighted with the final display, the exhibition team felt that the inclusion it provided to the storyline also highlighted other exclusion, like it's focused on people with mobility impairments, but no stories about cognitive adaptation. But even in this limited capacity, these stories provide examples to our visitors and to our staff and colleagues on how museums can grow and evolve further. It was really through working with people with disabilities and speaking to those with the lived experience of making and modifying their own equipment to access the outdoors that we were able to add to our collection and to change our ways of thinking and doing. Now, I'd love to tell you that the development of this exhibit demonstrates our commitment to consultation, that we do projects with input from the beginning to the end, and we always consider the lived experience in what we do. But so much of the work done in Adapting Adventure was done informally, learning as we went. So what I'd like to share with you next from the Rebuild experience is that oftentimes many decisions are made with good intention and with a thought to best practice and a fair amount of assumptions. And those decisions don't always yield the best results. After the museum opened in 2017, we held consultations with different people with disabilities to critically assess the museum. How did we do? What can we do better? And where did we fail spectacularly? These consultations were imperative in helping us develop a priority list of remedial work across the site, since we had reserved a portion of our budget to make modifications after we opened, once actual people came to visit. What surprised us to some degree was that these consultations did not reveal the need for a new app or a specific workshop or a tool or a program, but rather that the two overwhelmingly primary issues raised impacted the entire museum and all visitors, regardless of their abilities. Reduce the ambient noise levels and improve the lighting. The dimness of the lighting, the lack of contrast between surfaces, the starkness of a spotlight did not provide the best environment for any visitor. Similarly, the resonance of sound against hard surfaces, the openness of the floor plan, the murmur of the HVAC system provided a perfect storm of ambient noise that required visitors to speak increasingly loudly over one another to be able to hold conversations, which only added to the cacophony of the space. So over the past 2 years, we have worked with separate lighting and sound experts to help us address these issues. These experts have done a thorough assessment of our equipment, our installations, our infrastructure, to provide detailed plans and equipment changes that will improve the overall experiences for all our visitors. So during our closures this past year during the pandemic, we have started making modifications to the lighting and hope to complete this in the next few months. The changes are astounding. As for the sound, we have prototyped one area of the museum and are now planning the work for the modifications across the rest of the museum over the next year or two. Other recommendations that came out of these consultations included an improvement to wayfinding. And so we've worked with the graduate students who's done a full assessment of our wayfinding system, and we're waiting to conclude the lighting fixes to review these assessments literally in a new light. We also worked with the Ottawa Hospital to deliver training to our guides and hosts, as well as to all our staff at our staff meeting, to help strengthen our awareness on building better programs, experiences, and ways of working to support people with disabilities. While so much of the museum's renewal met and surpassed accessibility needs, there were a few fails too. Working quickly without formal consultation led to some decisions around the use of raised lettering and raised line drawings in some areas of the museum. Using a font with too much detail, raised lettering instead of Braille did not yield very good results. These were changed to a much simpler font and full Braille text for some of our labels. And as for the raised drawings, while these seemed like a good idea at the time, they were too detailed, almost direct reproductions of images, and didn't provide a clear sense of the image or communicated clearly what we were trying to convey with these images. So those were redone in consultation with people with low vision and blindness. It seems obvious, but it's always easier to develop something in consultation first, not as a corrective measure. And while we might have been reticent to embark on other adaptive tools or programs or activities after these misfires, I think the experience of having to go back and fix errors has only strengthened our commitment to working closely with groups with lived experience from the outset. Whether that's in developing a workshop for adults on the autism spectrum or making modifications to our websites. And it's made us even more aware that we have to keep moving forward, learn from what we've done, right and wrong, and keep applying new ways of working and new ways of thinking across the museum. The last examples I want to share with you this afternoon are around one of the many secondary recommendations that came out of these consultations, and that's the development of pre-visit planning tools for people with disabilities. Before the museum shut its doors in March 2020 in response to the pandemic, we were on the verge, literally days away from launching our sensory guide and social stories. Unfortunately, because the experience at the museum has been modified so significantly during COVID-19, any assumptions you might take about arriving at the museum, purchasing tickets, walking through the museum have all changed completely. We've yet to launch these tools on our website. But if you are interested, I have, however, posted examples of these on the conference portal for those of you that are interested in getting a peek at the tools or to use them as a reference in thinking about developing your own. The sensory guide, which is featured here on this slide, both the cover page and the introduction table of contents page, provides visitors with an overview of the museum experience and highlights areas to seek out or to avoid based on your sensory sensitivities. They identify bright lights, loud sounds, strong smells, tactile opportunities, and movement opportunities. The guide uses plain language descriptions with photographs of the exhibits and spaces to help families understand their visit ahead of time. For families with sensory sensitivities, it allows them to go through the guide together, to identify where they will and will not go, and to manage expectations for a successful outing. It also uses the museum's floor plan to help identify areas of sensory rest and informs visitors that they can borrow noise reduction headphones from the front desk if they are sensitive to sound. The social stories provide context for individuals or families for whom visit planning and understanding the environment and its social context can make for more positive and supportive visits. And on this page, we've identified images of the front page of each of our 3 social stories that we currently have developed. So one for families, one for solo adults, and one for our Zoom Children's Gallery. We organize them into those three categories, and each story has photographs of the environment and provides a short description of what can be expected. Will I be lining up? Will I have to wait my turn? Can I talk to a host or guide? What happens if I'm lost? Where can I find washrooms and what kind of access do these have? Where are the food services? And these are meant to complement the sensory guide, so a family can use these ahead of their visit together. We are really looking forward to launching these tools and to testing them further in the real world of an open museum and develop more stories in the future. For example, we can see great benefit in developing a social story for an on-site school program so that student who needs it in the class can have that tool available to them before they come to the museum, or maybe for a workshop in our Exploratech makerspace, and then possibly for any special exhibition that is added to the museum, even if it's on a temporary basis. It seems like the possibilities truly are endless. And really, that has been our experience at the museum. Every time we develop a new workshop or add another layer in our exhibitions or develop tools to support individuals and families, we see the opportunity to increase access even further. We've embarked on a long and rewarding journey, and our work truly is ongoing. Accessibility isn't an end state. It doesn't just end after you've opened your doors, but it's a way of thinking and engagement that requires listening, understanding, commitment, and acceptance. Progress and improvement is ongoing, and in a few short years, we have seen the impact of our commitment and are energized by the successes to continue our work. As we build our accessibility plan, we will focus on key areas like employment, communications, and procurement of goods, services, and facilities. These key pillars, as outlined in the Accessible Canada Act, provide focus for Ingenium to reflect, develop, consult, and map out improvements beyond our public-facing programs and our built environment to a more integrated way of working across all business lines. We're excited to take on this next challenge and to seek opportunities to increase awareness, develop skills, and improve ways of thinking and doing. Thank you very much. I've just posted my name and address here at lleblanc@ingeniumcanada.org. You can reach out to me anytime if you have any questions or would like more information about the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Again, that was an incredibly comprehensive detailing of all the great things that are being initiated at the museum. The climbing wall, the accessible water chairs, for the city. There's just an incredible array of support services, resources, and technologies that are providing universal experiences and enhancing accessibility for everyone in the city. As I mentioned earlier, we have had some questions come in, and I'll take a few minutes to pose those questions to you. If questions, just to the audience, if your questions don't get answered, please remember that you can reach out to either Megan or Lisa upon conclusion of this event today, either through the in the exhibit hall or through their contact information that's posted with their speaker bio information on the event website or on the event site. So with that said, not terribly eloquently, but all the same, I'm going to pull forward a few of those questions. And the first one that comes up now and here is the sensory. It's with regards to the sensory guide. And the question has been posed as such. The sensory guide is a phenomenal addition, but this person is curious to know if any of the guides specifically indicate places to rest, and if places to rest have been incorporated along the way.
So yes, the short answer is yes. The
Yes.
sensory guide provides a map of the museum and identifies where those areas of rest can be identified, and so that they can be sought out at any time during their visit if people need to take that sensory break, for sure.
Thank you. Another question. This person is curious to know about the consultative process with the team of of people with disabilities. What was that process like? What was that consultative process like? And how did the entire team respond to the feedback? I believe that is probably very pertinent to your process, Megan, that was employed with the accessibility plan.
Yeah, so when we embarked on our consultations, it would have been back in 2019 when we were able to do stuff in person. It was the largest accessibility consultations that we had taken on at the city, as far as like a large process to develop our plan. We learned a lot, and we learned of areas that there are still barriers, which is really important for us to know. We are working every day to address those barriers, but if we don't get that feedback and have that conversation with our residents about what still remains to be done, we don't know. So I have my own lived experience, but I don't have everybody else's perspectives and experiences. So that's really important to us. As a result of learning from that, we continue to consult, we continue to expand our networks, because we learned that that's extremely important for us to continue to improve and grow at the city. And we look forward to our next round of large consultations, but certainly along the way, we're always building in those, smaller with organizations or members of the community to keep getting their feedback as well.
Thank you. An attendee, another question for you, Megan. An attendee is asking about the Paratranspo app that mentions a launch date of 2020. And this person would like to know if that link can be shared, or is it shared, and how would that person go about taking
I
a look at
believe
that?
I had 2020 on my presentation, and my apologies for that. That was just like a year screw up. So the full suite of para online services will be released later this year. Right now, we've got kind of an interim online booking form that you can find on the OC Transpo, Paratranspo website. But the whole suite where you can track, where you can get those reminders sent, won't actually be released until later in 2021. So that was my mistake. I've lost a year of life, like many of us have.
We all have. Thank you. And final question, it looks like, and again for you, Megan, are there plans to retrofit any of the existing parks and playgrounds? Retrofitting is not simple.
Yes, so the parks are fairly constantly being upgraded over time, to include, new equipment. These things do become dated with time, and to keep up with new standards and safety and features that are available. So yes, over time, all of our city parks are renewed, and then we're able to look at those new features that are being offered through various companies and implement them. I mentioned that when we're developing or creating new parks or redeveloping, that we consult with the community and with our accessibility advisory committee. So members of the public can participate through engage.ottawa.ca. So you can see what we've got coming up with our parks. And it allows us the opportunity to kind of customize what's going into these various parks based on the community desires and needs.